Yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap.
Yeah. For every Kobe Bryant, there's an Al Harrington. Actually, Al Harrington probably isn't even the best example.
No,
You don't even know.
for every Kobe Bryant, there's a Ron Jenkins.
Yeah, that's a better.
That's on the corner with a quart right now, talking about what he could have been.
Facts. As he goes to grab his 40 ounce afterwards. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing we call life. On today's episode, we'll be discussing if college is still necessary. And we have a few questions to kind of help keep us focused and grounded and on topic. So the first question is what are the pros of a college education? That's the first question, and we'll get started with Brother Ray.
I not know you was coming here. Hey, yeah. One of the things I could say about, for me, I know when I went to college for the first time, one of the pros for me was the college experience. You know, in high school, middle school, elementary school, you have a structured class schedule. So you basically go where they tell you to go, or you have to be in a certain place at a certain time. Where on and there's people to make sure that you get to whatever classroom you're supposed to be in. Where in college, you're an adult. The instructors have gotten paid, the institution has gotten paid, and they don't care if you go or not because they've already gotten their money. And if you don't go, it's basically on you. But for me, I could say for sure the college experience itself, that was the first taste of adulthood for me, which I failed miserably because I wasn't ready for it, to be honest. But then it also allowed me to meet folks from other walks of life, people from other states, from other countries, other cultures. That was some of the pros that I immediately focused in on when it came to the pros of college education. And learning something from someone who hopefully had some experience in whatever course they were teaching. To me, I think that was a pro as well.
I think that there are numerous, pros to it, but some of the things that come to mind immediately are time management skills and discipline. You have to have at least some sort of or gain some sort of management skills and discipline when it comes to studying and being in class on time and all those sorts of things. And not everyone's completely successful at it, but you have to at least have some of those skills if you plan to be successful in college. Also specialized knowledge, right? So whatever career you're planning to go into, or whatever you're planning to use your degree on, the only way you're really going to get the specialized knowledge that you need for it is through college. Yeah, you can read some books and you can take you can do a couple of other things, but college is really going to get you where you need to be with regards to that specialized knowledge in that career field. Also, you learn transferable skills in college. It's soft skills, public speaking, team building, rapport building, critical thinking skills, which, as you all know, if you've listened to this show, even a couple of times, how much I talk about critical thinking, how important that is. Networking, yeah, you can network outside of college, but you kind of have a ready-made network that you build in college that you don't even have to really truly work for, quite frankly. To Ray's point, you get when you're meeting other people and talking to other people, you get diverse perspectives. People from other walks of life, whatever that may mean. Whether it be religious, color, race, different country, whatever the case is. Um, and then also, I think that college offers you something that can't be taken away. Once you have a college degree, you have a college degree, period. Like that's not something that can be taken from you. And then the last thing I mentioned, and I think again there are many others, but the last one that I'll point to is the fact that you also have access to internships, right? Potential access, at least, to internships and exchange programs and things like that that you may not otherwise have if you didn't go to college.
Expanding your thought process on knowledge and information you receive, uh, as well as getting to meet people that may have had different experiences than you did, to me is one of the huge benefits of going to college, being in that environment. Uh, it also tests your parents' parenting skills as well. Yeah, parents don't like to talk about that, but as a parent who had a kid go to college, it was very insightful from that perspective. You know, their maturity level, uh, their ability to follow rules, uh, the way that they seek to again expand how they think about uh, things, think about the world, how they actually process and apply the knowledge and information that they receive through instruction in your college. One of the biggest things, though, is I think it really helps you become a better problem solver and a better decision maker, because those challenges lurk around every corner uh, in college. Uh, so, so to me, those are a lot of the pros. And like Kevin had stated earlier, of course, the technical knowledge and information that you get for specialized areas of study are vital as well. But one of the things that I did think about, when we decided to revisit this topic, was there are a lot of things you get in college that you could very easily get before you get to college. Uh, and I think back to my own experience, in taking uh, math classes that I would never use, just had none whatsoever. I would have majored in business management, and you have me taking these math classes that really amount to nothing, you know. And then I look back on high school and I say, maybe, some of that information could be shifted to what we learn in high school as well. It used to be a badge of honor to take, algebra, geometry, and, trig and algebra 2 in high school. I'm like, for what? You want to major in business? Yeah, you want. I mean, so would it be better if they taught you entrepreneurship? How to develop a business plan, uh, the uses of that business plan. I mean, those are things that you could actually learn in high school. So those are just some of the pros that I thought about. I mean, certainly, and I think ultimately individuals uh, have different experiences uh, based on their own, internal motivation factors. So
The pros of a college education, man, the academia, learning and being in an atmosphere of people that are seeking knowledge and seeking that kind of growth and being able to, one of the things that Rod said, you really point back out, college is a safe experience to test out adulthood. Like when I think about when I first went to college, man, I was far enough away from home to not be at home, but close enough that when I got in over my head, my mama could drive up there. And that's not everybody's experience, but it was definitely a community where I started to get a lot of my, to learn how to manage myself. And I did horribly with it, but still, I could see where those roots, they're just experiences with organizations and groups and time management. Like it was totally different from high school. Nobody cared whether you showed up to school or not, or when you studied or how you put this together. And it created, and then the organizations, my heavy bend towards activism started in college, meeting young folks that really wanted to make a change in the world and were tired of how things were going. So there were just so many experiences in college. And, to speak to what some of the other brothers said, there are just some really specific disciplines that college really helps you achieve. Like there's some stuff in this world that you want to be that there ain't no way to get there without college. And that's important because it is still, with all of its flaws, it is still an opportunity for us to seek knowledge of self and knowledge of the world around us to its highest degree in a disciplined and ever evolving format. So
I think college too, it's just going to give you an experience that you're not going to get anyplace else. It's just like being in the military, it's just an experience you're not going to get anyplace else. And it's going to give you options in life. So funny. I tried to call my cousin today to wish her happy birthday. Now she's a professor at Indiana University. So she texts me back, I can't talk right now. I'm at a symposium in Ghana because guess what? The Indiana University paying for me to be in Ghana for 8 days because she's a professor. So it's like you get an experience and you get options in life. And then, being an HR, you have a lot of time that employers just want to see, did you complete something? Did you have the wherewithal just to complete something? If and the degree speaks volumes, just you being disciplined enough, like you all have said, just being disciplined enough to finish a process for 4 years, some of us 6 years, however long it took you to get that undergrad, but the point is that you were disciplined enough to get that document. And it's just showed that at some point in time, you either matured, and it's like, I'm getting this done. I understand the purpose in this, getting it done. And for me, I like the big thing about it because it provides option. Of course, there's a study out there that says, the average college graduate makes $1.2 million over a lifetime more than a high school graduate. Again, it depends on, where those people live, where they work or whatever. But for the most part, on average, it's gonna help you with your family later on down the line as well too. So I like the options and I like the experience that college brings.
And to your point, B, with that statistic, I read a stat from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics that said that on average, obviously it's not the case everywhere, but on average, those who have just a bachelor's degree make 68% more than those with a high school diploma. Mm-hmm. And again, that's on average. So yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a definite pro.
Yeah.
All right, next point is, the next point is that we're going to delve into is, what are the cons of going to college?
Ooh, the cost. The cost of going to college is just outrageous.
Yeah.
And I look at it from just an institution perspective. And to me, it speaks to what our capitalistic society is really about. the majority of people, the overwhelming majority of people, have to go into debt to get through college.
Yeah.
So that sets them up from a deficit position if and when they do complete the course of study. And a vast majority of them, maybe not majority, but a vast number of them get the debt, but don't get the degree. So now you spent money going to college. You don't get the degree that you went there for, but you walk away with the debt. So you could have been doing that right out of high school, right out the gate with no debt. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, people don't fully understand. I think a lot of people go to college and it's such a good time that they don't even think about it. I'm gonna be in debt when I get done with this party, and there's some expensive parties going on. So I think one of the cons is the cost for sure, and another would be the time that it would take you to finish your course of study, especially if it goes beyond 4 years for a bachelor's degree. But of course, that I would think would jump out to many. On top of you can make some decisions in college that can change the course of your life. So that also could then to be a con. But I'm sure everyone else probably thinks the cost, maybe except Dr. Byron, who has unlimited amount of resources
I'm on a
available
fixed
to him.
income, bro. I'm on a fixed income. That's why Victor's out here hustling right
Got
now.
them MWR funds.
The MWR funds,
That's
exactly.
that fixed income, man.
I don't know nothing about no MWR.
Well, brother, I'll turn it over to you so you can tell us all about it.
Oh, wow, really? Yeah, that's the con for sure. The con is when you go to school, think you get one thing, get the degree, and then you can't find no job in your time that you spent. Now you got to go reinvent yourself, spend some more money, and then come up with a new career path. So I think, on the line, I think we're all going to agree the money is the ridiculous thing and how did it get so expensive? It just, man, you talking about, I got a friend of mine who sent his daughter to Howard last year. It's $50K a year to go to Howard. I'm just like, dude, I'm like, how do, I mean, you're talking what? That's a new car every year. In some parts of the country, you can buy a house in some parts of the country what we're paying for tuition now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just crazy how much it costs, and then people mad about people and trying to get these student loans forgiven. I mean, it's just like why we got to pay so much money for people just to better themselves. That's a whole nother argument. But yeah, definitely the cost there. I mean, where does it go? I mean, by the time Victor go to school, it's going to be $100 grand. And some schools are almost $100 grand. So yeah, definitely the cost, man, of going to school is definitely a con. And then, like you said, you spend that time going to school, and then you got to reinvent yourself because your degree is obsolete. So
yeah, Victor better be glad you're his daddy.
With deep pockets.
I'm spending money on him now, so I have to pay money later. That's the plan. That's the plan.
What both Rod and B said are right on point, right? I mean, I think B, or both of you said that I think that would be probably the number one thing that we would all say is that the debt. That's probably the number one con of going to college, is the debt that it potentially creates for you. And then also the other thing that B mentioned about, hey, sometimes it doesn't even work out. You go through all of that, and then you still can't necessarily find a job always. So depending upon, your career field, it doesn't guarantee you a job. Does it increase your chances in most instances? Sure, but it certainly doesn't guarantee you a job or a career. So, and then I would say one of the other cons would be the fact that if you're interested in being a mechanic or a plumber or something like that, um, well, I don't want to say college could be a waste of your time. I don't ever want to say that. But you may not actually even need to go to college if that's where you're trying to head in one of those types of directions. You could just go to trade school, which would probably be a better option for you in the case of being like a car mechanic or a plumber or something along those lines. So yeah, I think for me those are probably the top cons that come to mind.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a great point. I'm sorry, but I was going to say, I was thinking of that, when we talk about, reframing the conversation around college, because I actually think it would be a complete waste of your time to go if you wanted to do something like, be a mechanic, or some other trade. I mean, and well, I wouldn't say complete. You could always get something from gaining knowledge and information about things, but the things that the problem is that they force you into taking classes and learning things that don't benefit you at all whatsoever.
Right.
And that's the problem with how the structure around the college curriculum and degree programming, is scoped right now. So, if you could decide for yourself, what classes you took that would actually benefit what you wanted to do in life, that'd be something different. But unfortunately,
So we appreciate it. The first thing I had written down was affordability, of course. So we all agree about that. Another con that I can think of, the one that mainly came to mind, was that a lot of these companies want experience, and everybody's not in a position to be able to get an internship to get some experience into the career field that they have chosen to go into. So that can definitely be a con, that here it is, you're spending all this money for college education, but yet you cannot seem to get the experience that these companies that you are hoping will hire you, that they're looking for. Like I said, my daughter, my oldest daughter, was one of those that was lucky, where she was able to get internships as a freshman and with Raytheon, and she was able to stick with them up until she graduated and beyond. Then they hired her because she had the experience that they were looking for. But all of these kids or young folks, even some of the older folks, don't have that option to get that experience. So here it is, you're only willing to hire me. You're saying I have to have this college degree, but you're also looking for experience. But how am I supposed to get the experience if you don't hire me and I can't get an internship? That's definitely a big con.
Because I thought
So,
what Ray said was a good point, because some people do see that what they call opportunity cost as a con, right? Like in the sense of, you know, a lot of people feel like those 4 years that this person might be spending in college getting an education is 4 years that I can actually be trying to get experience in the workforce. So maybe those 4 years later, when this person gets out of college, I've already gained 4 years of experience, and I might be ahead of the curve. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, and it's certainly not the case all the time. But I agree with you. I think that certainly can be has the potential to be a con without a doubt. So
I think one of the cons of college is not college itself, but how it's been positioned in society. I think there's a lot of people who maybe had dreams and goals in life that maybe college wasn't the right move for them, but we have definitely made it seem as if you don't go to college, you're unsuccessful. And again, like I said, that is not something that you put on the institution of college. but that is somehow, sometimes how we framed it, when history has proven it. There are people that have gifts and talents that are able to be honed and built up outside of the parameters of college. Now, college is a wonderful choice for a lot of people, but a lot of times it hasn't been presented as a great option for people that want to do this or that. It's been presented as the only option if you want to be successful. And in my personal opinion, I think that crushes the dreams of a lot of people, and it has. We've gotten to a point now where people understand that there are other roads to success. But even as we're having these conversations, you say, well, yeah, if you want to be like a mechanic or a plumber. And I think a lot of people don't see the honor in those jobs, because I tell you what, I need a plumber when something's going on in the house. And
Absolutely.
When they come and they can work on my issue, I'm not worried about if they got a degree, if they spend any time on the college campus. Can you do the job that I need you to do? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I think that's important, and obviously the cost. But I think, and this may be something we want to get into later, but I think, man, we might as well just jump into it. We understand when we talk about the cost of college, we understand that started with Reagan. In 1967, when he was governor of California, and all the protests in Vietnam and the protests for civil rights, and he called protesters animals and, all kind of terrible names. And he decided that he did not want people to just be able to go to college for low cost or for free. And he was really intent on actually destroying the U.S. Department of Education. So in California, what he did was he started raising the prices, and they started transferring from grants and the ability to go, because you're a citizen. And now it started to move more towards a punitive, tuition. And this went so well that he ran on the same platform when he ran for president. So when he got into president, he was after the U.S. Department of Education. And this is the historical way they put it, to try to say he was just against this. What was happening was, when the Civil Rights bill was passed, now you got Black people that are able to get into college. And he felt a way about that. And he was like, we got to do everything we can to be able to keep these Black people from going to college. And so in 1967, when they were changing the rules of how tuition worked for college, they got together and they said, first off, can't let them go to any PWIs, so white institutions. We got to make sure that they don't go to those institutions. And we got to make sure that at these historically Black colleges and universities, that we don't teach them the science of war, that we don't teach them the science of finance and economics, that we don't teach them the science of biology, genealogy, and lineage, that we don't teach them those three major things, to make sure that they don't understand the power of their lineage, that they don't understand how to go to war against the factors that have kept them down, and that they don't understand how to use their money as a collective so that they can create power bases. So a lot of that had to do with Reagan. And even though he wasn't able to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education, he was able to decrease it by 25% by 1982. And then not only that, is that all of those grants went almost to 100% to loans. And that's what started or triggered the concept of us having crippling student loan debt. And a lot of people don't realize that, but prior to the late 70s, early 80s, school was not such a back-breaking expense. Yeah, you had to, you had to qualify for it, but it wasn't a back-breaking expense. People didn't have to go into debt and never be able to pay it back. So I would say that that's not a con of college, but that's a con of the way the system has positioned access to knowledge and information and opportunities. And a lot of times college has to take the heat for that, because it has been the focal point to prevent certain groups of people from having access to bettering their lives. And so those systems still remain in place. And a lot of us don't even know that it was just simply somebody decided, I don't want Black people in college. And it changed the way college works for everybody. So, that's one of the things for me.
And I resemble that remark, right? Because that's the very reason why I had to leave college. Because Reagan decided to drastically reduce the Pell Grant, which the Pell Grant, when I started college, it paid for my full tuition and most of my books. And when he cut it, between 82 and 83, I had to leave school because I could no longer afford to go to school without working full time. Of course, people think that that's just normal behavior now, but at the time it wasn't, because the Pell Grant was actually taking care of school, and I could go and focus on my computer science degree curriculum, the Cal 1, 2, 3, foundations of algebra, linear algebra, all those courses that they wanted me to take. I could actually do that without having to work full time. I worked part time, but once he cut the Pell Grant, yeah, it was just no longer affordable.
And the next question we're going to roll into regarding this is how do we reframe a conversation on college?
Tried to make about reframing college, and I think for me it's about really understanding um, the pros and cons, of course, but the benefit that you as an individual get from college, right? I think, gone are the days where, if you go to college or don't go to college, it depends, it determines whether or not you're able to be successful in the world. I think we're past that, right? And I think even young people probably feel differently about that now. Those that are privileged enough to know that they're going to college, uh, they still think a certain way about college. But the others, that were kind of on the fence about going or not going, I think they're trying to reimagine, what life looks like without having a college degree. And the goodness is that, we know that there are all types of high paying jobs that you can live off of without having a college degree, if you're willing to go into one of the trades. Or maybe you just take a path of, instead of a 4-year degree, you go to a 1-year program that you leave with a certification to actually be able to go into the workforce and do something, right? Because we know people, companies, employers pay you for what you can do or what you know, plain and simple. So if you could walk away having that skill set, uh, and you save, 3 years of your life, and you have the actual tools that you need to go and be a productive working citizen in this country. Uh, so, so I think reframing it around really understanding you as an individual, and what you need to get out of that experience of higher learning. I won't even call it college, right? I'll just say higher learning. So, because college is not for everyone.
I think reframing is, I know this question is probably mostly about reframing it, as a society, right, from a societal perspective. But I will say, I think that um, reframing education has to start with parents as well. I think that's a huge part of it, and I'm guilty of some of this myself. But I think oftentimes we advise our kids the wrong way with regards to college. Now, I will say, you know, a lot of me, telling my daughter that she, I took it from a different perspective in the sense of, I told her that in this country, as a Black person, your quickest route to success is going to be with a college education. Now, I didn't say you have to go to college, but that was the information I gave her. So in a lot of ways, it was like, if you expect to be successful, you're going to need to go to college. And a lot of that came from, I was born in 71, right? So, back then, that was what we were kind of told. And that was pretty much true back then. And as Rod just said, there are other ways. There are other paths now, more paths to success than there used to be for a black person. And that's another thing, real quick, too. I'll say is that we framed this in totality, this whole conversation so far, but understanding that the conversation shifts a tad bit if we break that out, right? If we're just talking strictly for black people versus society at large. But in any case, I do think that we need to, as parents, we have to frame it different. Like, and a lot of times when we're talking to our kids about college, whether they're going to go or not, we'll say things like, "What are you passionate about?" Right? What do you think your calling is? And what does an 18-year-old truly know about what that really means? So I think we have to stop using phrases like that when we discuss careers, college, whatever the case is, with our kids, and reframe that, right? Instead of talking about your passion and your purpose and your calling and things like that, which again, they have no idea about in most instances at 18, 19, 20 years old. We should be asking them more questions like, what are you interested in? What do you enjoy doing? What are you good at, right? What's important to you? You know, where do you get your most energy from? What is it that you're doing that you draw energy from? These sorts of questions versus, like I said, what are you passionate about? What is your purpose? They don't know these sorts of things. So again, I think part of that reframing has to start in the home, not just society at large.
You start talking about people of color. I mean, how many of us on this call are first generation college graduates?
Right.
No, I am.
Right.
So when we look at our counterparts who don't look like us, so now you're talking second, third, maybe even fourth generation college graduates. So that process of going to college has already been ingrained in our counterparts. It was like it was no option. You were going to go to college because guess what? Your grandfather went to Harvard, or your grandfather went to Georgetown. So you're going to go to Georgetown. Or your grandfather went to Michigan or Notre Dame. You're going to go. So as far as reframing that conversation for our people, it's like you said, we grew up where our parents was like, you're going to go to school and you're going to go to school and get your education because that's the one thing they can't take away from you is your education. At least that's what I heard. That is that, hey, they can't take that education away from you. So I think reframing the conversation around college is maybe not so much the necessity, but again, just reframe the conversation around how college can impact your life one way or the other. And just being examples and role models of that. Again, our counterparts, they saw examples of that. Hey, they're when they graduated from college, grandma probably gave them a house. For us, it was just like, hey, do the best you can when you get out. And so we're just now playing catch up. Now my daughter's a college graduate. So again, we see how college can be beneficial to the next generation. She's a college graduate, she's a homeowner, already in, at her early 20s, they were already college graduates and homeowners. I didn't own a home until I was in my late 30s. So we just see how that conversation, reframing how you can bring stability to your next generation. But that, to me, that's what I think. We're still playing catch up. I'm not saying we're the victims. However, reality is reality. We're still playing catch up as a people of color. So we gotta close that gap the best way we can. I think reframe that conversation in the sense of this is just one option that you can use to help close that gap for you. It may not be the end all, the be all for you, but it's a good way to start to close that generational wealth, how you can actually provide for you and your family, your future. So it's a start, but there's many options out there.
It's about it starting with parenting. And the reason I say that, B, when you were talking, I was thinking about, yeah, the challenges, a lot of us being first generation college graduates. But I also think about the immigrants that have come over here from different countries, where, yeah, they were first generation college graduates as well, but they had a plan. I remember walking through Third Ward in Houston, Texas, when I was actually in college, and there's some large houses there, that multi-families lived in. And the kids that were in school, they were designated to what they were going to go and study and learn. One might go to be a doctor, a sibling might go to be a lawyer, an accountant. I mean, these things were planned out, and 2 or 3 families pooled their resources to live together temporarily until they could get their kids college educated and on a path to have better opportunities here in the United States of America.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, what have or have we not done in our own communities to be intentional about how we pursue what we believe to be the American dream, or a semblance of success from the standpoint of education, since I think a lot of us have, long known or been told that, education was one way to go about changing your circumstance.
It was now that you mentioned, it was a family in Fort Wayne. Mother raised her kids, and she's like, y'all gonna go to school. And when they was going to school, they all lived in the same house. Until like 15 years ago, she had a son that was a doctor. She has a daughter that was a principal. She had another daughter that was a nurse. But guess what? They all lived in the same house. And I'm talking about they're in their 40s, but they all live in the same house. And so what they did was they took that house and just added wings or whatever to it. But guess what? They had generational wealth that they created, and they all lived. They didn't go out. Let me go out and buy, my own mansion. We just gonna create and stay here, and we're gonna pile up and stockpile our wealth together. And now they own property and everything else. So I think part of that too is just being able to trust the people you're with. That's the other thing too.
No, I think those are all great points. I do think that we do need to look at those points holistically. Like, I totally agree that do we as a people shoot ourselves in the foot? Absolutely. And there's some things that we could do better. But I think it's always important to recognize that because we are oppressed, there's always a call for us to be better, to strive harder, and it's not fair. They were interviewing an immigrant, and they were talking about, y'all come over here. The interviewer was saying, y'all come over here and y'all get into school, do all these things, and there's Black people that have been here all this time and they can't pull themselves up. And it was just insightful that the immigrant pushed back, and he said, nah, I can imagine coming from where I come from and then coming here and doing that, because I know that I'm gonna be seen as an immigrant or whatever, but they have not strategically created a system to diminish my confidence in myself, my confidence in my communities, my abilities to move. He said, as an immigrant, I'm not gonna face as much violence to my person as Black people. I haven't lived here for generations and been treated as less than a citizen. I come over here as an immigrant and I just need to get citizenship, but out the door, I'm a human. And he's like, I can't imagine trying to make it with the intentional campaign to belittle, demean, and strip me of my power, my rights, and my will that Black people have in this country. And so, sometimes we have to take that into consideration too, when you look at what immigrant groups are able to do, is that when they get here, they don't have to face the same barricades that Black people are facing from the moment they're born. Like look, if you really, really want to get in and think about the infant mortality rate and the woman mortality rate of Black women and how we're treated just trying to get here in the first place, but I think, man, if we want to reframe this conversation on college, what just came up in my mind was protected status. Like if not just Black people, but if America as a society is saying we are the best and that we produce the best and we do the best, then why don't we just put our money where our mouth is, and make going to college? This is something where, like Rod said, man, I had to work in college. That was hard, man. Like, I couldn't do all of that. Like, it was just like, this is too much. And I mean, it wasn't nothing but a part-time gig, but it was hard. And if we could put young people in a situation where going to college was an opportunity that we made more equitable, made it more, like they don't got to worry about food and where they're going to stay, maybe almost like the military, not quite, but like one of the advantages that the military can get away with paying us so little when we join is because they provide us with insurance. They provide us with, somewhere to stay, and they provide us with 3 hots and a cot, you know what I mean? So, and if at the very minimum, you could go to school and your needs are met, and you don't have to worry about a lot of secondary things, and that we allowed that freedom of these young minds to really explore and, to be teamed up with these professionals that have spent their life studying. And it's just amazing. Like for me, a lot of things that we hold near and dear is true. Like when you kind of let go of that and just say, hey, I want to go where the information takes me. I want to go where the research and the data takes me. And when you can get to that point, and I think a lot of times we're putting ourselves in a position, 1, it's expensive. 2, we put them on a timeline that isn't realistic. Like who's actually a full grown ready adult at 22? Some, but not most. You know what I'm saying? And, you put them on a timeline where they can really develop skills and they can really pursue passions and learn and do active stuff, not just going into a classroom, being fed stuff and regurgitating it, but being able to do research. If they come in on something silly, like, yo, I want to research how Transformers cartoons and toys got started. Man, do you know that allowing people to really get into something they're passionate about, no matter how frivolous it's created? I know a doctor out of Philly that wrote her thesis on Black comic books, and now she has been involved in Marvel comics, the movies and all of that because of a thesis she came up with, because they were like, you're going to have to write it about something you're passionate about. And she was passionate about that. And she's got a career, making $10,000-$15,000 speaking fees to talk about this thing that she's passionate about. So if we could reframe it, create protected status to really encourage curiosity instead of so much red tape and bureaucracy in education. But we got to understand, man, a lot of the educational roadblocks that we put up are to make sure that there's classes and that you got a protected class and that you got a class in this position and a working class, and that people know that their positions. And if we could open it up and because all of us I'll tell you, I'm in school now and I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying the academic part of it, the ideas and learning and sharing my experiences and how I feel about things. But when I was 18, man, I really couldn't give a rat's behind about, some of the crap that they was making me, I'm in here looking at Beowulf and Ernest Hemingway's Drunk Behind, like I didn't care nothing about that stuff. And,
the one thing I came up with was we need to really change the narrative. I remember coming up, my parents or other parents would get upset if a school guidance counselor directed me or any other kids towards anything else other than college. And to your point that you guys have made, Kevin, Rod, Byron, John, when you say you can't, that's when you have an education, that's something that no one can take away from you. But if we change the narrative to say, not, it's not just whether it's a college education or vocational education, as long as you get an education is something that's going to help you earn a living, that's something that they can't take away from you. That's a skill they can't take away from you. So they have their schools that offer Job Corps, where we Kevin and I used to go to Skills USA convention every year in Kansas City, and see these kids up to young adults that are in there that have learned auto mechanics or learned welding, learned all HVAC, all kinds of other career fields that they didn't have to necessarily have a college education, but they were able to at least go out, get a formal education, learn these skills, get that experience that these companies are looking for, and then go get a job. Or some of these companies were sitting there waiting for, okay, well, when you graduate from Job Corps, we're going to give you a job. So that I think that's where we need to really change the narrative and say, um, they can't take an education or some skills that you have learned away from you. So go into look at the vocational schools, look at something like Job Corps, become an over the road truck driver. That's career fields that nobody can take away from you unless you do something to cost yourself that career field. HVAC. My cousin Darren is in his 40s and he just graduated, I want to say 2 years ago, with his education in HVAC. And now he's working for a company and working towards starting his own business. So it's never too late to do that. I just think that we really need to change the narrative. And when we say that they can't take an education from you, whether it's formal college, an actual college degree, or some skills that you have learned in a vocational avenue, that's education and some skills that they can't take away from you. We need to change the narrative to reflect that, and I think that would help reframe the conversation.
All right. Any final words on this before we conclude this episode? There's one thing I will point out real quick, and I meant to mention it earlier. Actually, is we didn't really get into the whole. We talked about how in this day and age there are other means other than just college of being successful, right? And you see all of these 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are making millions off of TikTok, off of YouTube, off of whatever, right? Or just off of social media in general. And I just want to caution, the younger generation, because to me, it's like, because I've heard some who have said, well, don't need college because, I can go out and make these $1 million off of TikTok, off of this or whatever. And to me, I liken it to that high school basketball player, right? That's the analogy I would use. To that high school
Facts.
basketball player
Facts.
who thinks, yeah, right, who thinks, oh, I can just skip high school or skip college and just go, straight and do this, because they see the Kobe's, they see the LeBrons, they see the Kevin Garnett's, right? They see the Dwight Howards and whoever, but they don't understand at that age that, okay, you see these 5, 10, however many who have been able to do this and be successful, but for every one of them who was able to do it and be successful, how many of them tried it and were not successful? Right? A whole lot more, right? And you don't get to see them. They're behind the scenes. You don't hear their stories. You don't know their stories because they weren't successful. All you're seeing is LeBron and Kobe, and you think, oh, I can go and do this. It's the same way with making money off of social media. Yeah, are there a lot of people doing it? Sure. But for everyone who's doing it, there are a whole bunch more who are unable to be successful in doing that. So you have to take that into consideration and look at all of your options, and don't just try to put all those eggs in that basket. Because to be quite frank, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer and say that you won't be successful in it, because of course there's always a chance that you will be. But quite frankly, there's a much greater chance that you won't in doing it.
No,
So, you have to keep that in mind.
You speaking to a serious reality I don't think people think about is that they let a few people make it so people can be lulled into thinking that they, and most of the people that try to go make millions of dollars off social media and influence or whatever, they just making money for the platform. They ain't making no money for themselves. They're out here struggling and they're not really developing themselves for the necessary ways. But then you can point at 5 people that made millions and billions off of that. But what about the 500,000 that are trying and they broke and got to borrow money to pay their bills? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap.
Yeah. For every Kobe Bryant, there's an Al Harrington. Actually, Al Harrington probably isn't even the best example.
No. For
you don't even know.
For every Kobe Bryant, there's a Ron Jenkins.
Yeah. That's
on the corner with a quart right now talking about what he could have been.
Facts. As he goes to grab his 40 ounce afterwards. Absolute facts.
We don't went way left.
but that left is the truth, period.
It's the truth. All right, unless anybody else has anything else. All right, so with that, we want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us. As we wrap up this week's episode, I want to leave you with a quote from author, civil rights activist, and all-around truth teller, James Baldwin, who said, "The paradox of education is precisely this, that as one begins to become conscious, one begins to examine the society in which he's being educated." Until next time, peace.